Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Moiz and I am the community manager here at Cloudways. We are on the final session of day one of our webinar week where we are celebrating 20 years of WordPress. Right now, I'm joined by Joe Hoyle, who is the co founder and CTO at HumanMade, and he is going to be taking us through AI and its future with WordPress. Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. All right, there's my slides. Fantastic. So how AI may shape the future of WordPress, and that the word may is fairly important here because this is a fairly swiftly moving, I guess, field and technology and all of that. So wanted to just kind of have a look at how WordPress may be shaped ultimately by all of the emerging technology we're seeing elsewhere. Are you getting my next slide? Because I am seeing my old slide. Are you seeing?
Yeah,
Oh, there we
yeah,
go. There we
yeah,
go. It seems to be
yeah.
just taking some time to update.
Yeah, it's lagging a bit, but it's working. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. As you mentioned, my name is Joe Hoyle. I'm a co-founder CTO of HumanMade. You can find me on Twitter or Mastodon should you want to continue any of the conversation, I guess, that we have here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to wait for the screen to update just to make sure the slide has
Yeah,
switched.
while we are waiting for the screen to update, let me just ask you, a question that I've been asking all my guests, and I will be asking those my guests in the future sessions as well. What is your earliest memory with WordPress?
It was good question. It was probably around, I guess, 13 or 14 years ago when I was really just getting into web development, and I learned how to build websites with, HTML, CSS. Got very much into like the Zeldman and all of that kind
Mm-hmm.
of web standard stuff. And the first thing I actually looked at was I'm trying Mambo, which was the predecessor to Joomla. That was like what I was trying to
Okay.
use to introduce a CMS, and yeah, didn't gel very well with that. And then I remember coming across WordPress, which was just a breath
Okay.
of fresh air in comparison, and that's how I got involved.
Absolutely.
And it's just been a very long journey, I guess, from then until now.
Yeah. All right. So I think we have the screens loaded. Uh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I've jumped ahead. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I seem to have some display bug going on, but I'll do my best
It's all
to,
right. I
to,
think.
to keep this
Yeah.
working. Okay, great. So AI, it's I guess it's an emerging field. There's a lot of jargon and things like that. So I don't know. I might just try and lay down some kind of common terminology here, because we have things like machine learning, generative AI, AGI, LLMs. There's a lot of acronyms and things like that. So I kind of think of it like there's really now the whole field is just kind of called AI, whether we kind of think that all of those things are actual artificial intelligence or not. AGI, or artificial general intelligence, is now kind of the thing that's been reserved for when we have all-knowing, all-seeing computers that are super intelligent, and we're kind of we're not there yet, absolutely. But I think it's more of a marketing thing that really machine learning really has become the label AI. And we have this recent advent of large language models, or LLMs, which are things like ChatGPT or GPT model underneath, or Google's Bard that came out and things like that. So recently, I guess the most basic way of putting it is like computers have become very good at human language, and that has like opened up a whole new area of applicability and functionality. And then things like deep learning, transformers, neural networks, those are kind of a lot of just the nuts and bolts of how a lot of this artificial intelligence capabilities are working. And I'm kind of not expecting to go into any depth or anything to do with those technologies here. And I kind of think of it, when we're developing with AI, and we're certainly on the forefront of that still in early stages. There's still already a kind of spectrum emerging of how much do you need to know about AI to use it, maybe to build it into WordPress or to build solutions on it, build things for clients, whatever you might be doing. There's a whole kind of stack there, and I think on one end right now the most simple use of AI is to integrate with APIs for AI. So that would be things like OpenAI's GPT API or image generation via Dolly or something like that. And you're really just sending HTTP API requests to something that's doing the quote AI, and then it's giving you something back, and you're integrating into your product or solution or whatever. And I guess that, you can go a step further than that. Maybe you have an ability to do custom training on top of existing models. So OpenAI allows you to do some amount of that. So you're going a bit of a level deeper there. You can self-host open source models, for example, and you can also host them on existing platforms. You can kind of go a level deeper than that. You can build your own models, and you can go all the way to programming neural networks and very low level. And the expectation, I think, in WordPress is certainly not that we all go that deep into kind of the mathematics and theory behind what really is machine learning or anything. The great thing about the advent of the APIs over the past year is that you really don't need to be a deep expert in the theory of it all. And that's very much, I think, like how, you can build WordPress themes with a fairly basic understanding of PHP, or you can build PHP applications with not really any understanding of C, which is the language that PHP is written in. And again, you can go a level deeper than that. So it's just a very similar, I think, spectrum where you shouldn't feel intimidated, because you don't need to go to that super deep level, and you don't need to go and buy, 3 500-page books on machine learning or something like that. It really now is at the very accessible kind of level. So I kind of wanted to take a little look at the kind of larger CMS industry to get some inspiration and understand where is the CMS ecosystem at large, and how will WordPress fit into that, I suppose. Again, because all of this is fairly novel and fast moving. Okay, great. If I skip slide that way, it works. So one of those is Sitecore, which is a fairly, I would say, enterprise-targeted CMS/DXP with a lot of marketing capabilities. So we can see that they've really, I think, initial take on AI is how to do personalization in terms of user experiences on the front end and all that kind of thing. So it's focused on things like customer segmentation, automated cohort analysis, automated personalization, things like that, and kind of content analysis, which I'll get into later as well.
Okay.
So Sitecore, I think, are certainly getting their feet wet already with these kind of capabilities, and WordPress as a core project is obviously lagging behind that. So that's interesting, I think. So the next platform people might have heard of is Contentful. That is kind of like a headless content repository, I guess, is the best way to think about that. So they really specialize in very good content management side, but don't really handle the theme rendering side of things. So Contentful as a core platform doesn't seem to have much in that regard yet, but there is a good amount of third-party add-ons that you can plug into it, which give you, some ability to generate content or translate content, that kind of thing. But I think they're still at the early third parties are doing it kind of stage, which is certainly interesting, because Contentful are a fairly recent addition to the CMS space, I guess, over the past like 5 years or something. So I would expect that they can pivot quite quickly into all of the generative AI
Yeah.
and beyond kind of stuff. I wanted to just quickly pull in Adobe Firefly, which I know is not exactly a CMS, but it's a generative AI platform built around, I think, what is quite clear to me, kind of content production and professional content production. So
Yeah.
rather than image generation things with things like Midjourney and Dolly, things like that, Adobe Firefly is clearly trying to introduce this into the kind of professional content pipeline, and I think that's really good inspiration, I suppose.
Yeah.
Specifically, Firefly is focused around image type generation or like assets, Gs, that kind of thing. But yeah, certainly it's interesting to see where the industry is going in terms of how those more kind of like visual elements are likely to be handled, and that's just probably it's a ticking clock until that probably really is the user expectation, and then you're going to come to WordPress, and what are you going to do? How are you going to get those type
So,
solutions? That's
so
kind of what I'm
is it
interested in.
is it like where you just type in a description and it pulls up an image of what it may look like? I'm seeing it. It's
Yeah,
making rounds on the internet nowadays. Yeah, people just type in
yeah.
random stuff. Yeah,
Creating images from scratch, I'd say, is where most
yeah,
of the like demos are for these things. Now, I actually think in terms of um, professional content production, I'm not really sure the whole dream up a brand new image is actually going to be
okay,
that useful. You really have to be a bit of an expert at creating the right prompt and things. But Firefly is very interesting because it has a lot of put your existing image in, change that person to be smiling instead, or set this photo as a sunset rather than middle of the day or
okay,
whatever. So it's like
nice.
you can just tweak things as you go in a very easy kind of way, and it's kind of bringing what was many hours in Photoshop for an expert to do,
Yeah,
directly into the kind of content producer's hand. So I think that's quite an interesting kind of direction for the
yeah.
industry to move in. And then we have our obviously close friend Drupal of
Drupal, yeah,
WordPress, another PHP open source
yeah,
CMS heavily used in the enterprise. And from what I understand there's certainly a good ecosystem building up in the third parties around third-party modules, which is mostly analogous to a WordPress plugin, in terms of how you can add in extra functionality around, okay, we'll add another button for generate the summary and that kind of thing. But still in that kind of the ecosystem and the community and third parties are generally the ones that are bringing those capabilities forward, and therefore you get a little bit of a it's not a totally cohesive user experience for
okay,
that reason, really, compared to somebody like Sitecore maybe that's just looking to build those things directly into the software.
okay.
So AI and open source, I think, is also an interesting intersection, because right now I would say the industry leading models and solutions are really quite closed, to be frank, and quite kind of black box. So that's like OpenAI stuff, despite the name. ChatGPT, the GPT model, Dolly, etc., are all closed sourced and fairly inscrutable, and would be difficult to see how something like that could come into the WordPress core project.
Yeah,
Midjourney, equally, probably the leading image generation model at this point that they have, doesn't even have an API, for example, all via Discord and just direct to user. Google Bard, with the stuff that they introduced a couple of weeks ago. Google are
yeah,
definitely doing the, allow you to use their models, but again, not open source, not like you can just download this and run it yourself, anything like that. And then Anthropic with the Claude model as well, which is fairly industry leading, is again closed. But not to say that it's all bad news. I mean, the open source models are still, I think, competitive. Meta open sourced their Llama model, which also didn't include the training weights, but those since leaked and actually are available. And Stability AI, I'd say, is kind of the flagship open source company that is, they had the Stable Diffusion image generation, which was certainly a step above OpenAI's, and recently launched Stable LM for language model and Stable Vicuna for open source chatbot, for example. I think the future is bright for the open source models. Over time, what seems to be happening is open source is kind of taking some of these large models like Meta's Llama and kind of, managing to reduce them in size massively, maybe down to 70, 80 megabytes. You can even run it on your own computer rather than a supercomputer, and a lot of kind of, I guess, just innovation in engineering that gets applied there, because once something is open sourced, thousands of people can suddenly start tinkering with it and all of that. So I think that there may be a future there for small models that are fairly targeted in what they can achieve, actually being able to, really meld into the WordPress core project potentially. I mean, I'm just talking obviously heavily speculatively, but something like a model that was trained on the semantics of Gutenberg specifically and not much else may be able to be, a small model that actually every WordPress site may be able to run in, the next few years or something. So I do think that there is a path there. It's just right now, really, the as kind of often happens, the latest and greatest is proprietary, and then that gets commoditized into open source relatively quickly afterwards, and hopefully we see that with the large language models as well. So WordPress, how could WordPress, I guess, be bringing these capabilities in, and how can we hope for a future of WordPress where we're able to share in the spoils of the AI future? There's obviously a couple of ways that can happen. Plugins that can integrate deeply into the CMS and provide augmentation and capability to WordPress functionality that already exists, and there's a lot of that already now. There's probably over 50 to 100 AI plugins that will integrate in some form or another, and I think that's probably a spectrum of how deeply they integrate and how native they feel and how part of the common user experience it is. But certainly there is a path there where plugins, in WordPress are given a huge amount of power to really, just augment the software in basically any way that Core could. So in theory, you can have a path of plugins only that can create a really capable AI, system. But I think ultimately, long term, if AI is kind of what we think it is, which is a fairly big transition in technology that's really going to impact all software, I think we need to be thinking about how that incorporates into the how it will be incorporated into the core software. And I think, like I said, that would really need to be pretty small models, obviously open source, public data that'd be kind of highly scrutinized, and there's also a capability gap or whatever from the core development side to actually be able to get involved in all of that. But I think as this field progresses, using these AI capabilities gets easier and easier as well. So the barrier to entry gets lower. So I don't really see that being an issue, that WordPress core will be able to attract the type of contribution that would be able to do that. So what I guess, really next, I got to think about what are some specific opportunities for WordPress to kind of keep up with where I think already a good amount of the industry is. So one of those is something like writing assistance. So I've been working on a project to bring like generative AI into Gutenberg, for example. There's a video playing here where you can just kind of like type and then it inserts your WordPress blocks for you, that kind of thing. So a lot of people have been using ChatGPT for like writing articles and getting assistance with them and, do the boilerplate or copy edit it, that kind of thing. So I think writing assistants are fairly simple concept that you can kind of wrap up. It can be in a plugin. There's a few different ways to go about it, but ultimately, when you're presented with, I'm going to write a new page or a blog post or whatever, having really an AI at your fingertips and helping you do that is, very, I guess, empowering and also a big activity win as well. Um, so that's the writing assistance. Let me see. Can I skip this? There we go.
So it can virtually, I think it can,
Yep.
if what you're showing, based on that, I think it can create an entire website on just commands, right? You just have to type in for each fold, like the last, snapshot, that, add a hero fold with the moon landing. So it added the fold with that. So if you can go fold by fold and, just keep on adding commands, and it will, by the end of it, it will create an entire website without using a single piece of code.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it obviously depends to what are you trying to build and how much of this is going to be handled by an AI for you. But it's definitely, I think, thinking several years in the future, not unrealistic to be
Yeah.
able to say, I want a website for this type of business that sells this thing. This is my,
Yeah.
what I'm thinking in terms of style, and it would actually be able to, even if it is generating a starter website for you. I'm not saying that maybe you just want to have one website and then it publishes your website on the internet, but the look and feel, the pages, the layout, the sitemap, even the current generation of generative AI is good enough to do all of that for you. So what I've showed there in Gutenberg with writing blocks is still very, that's still like, oh, well, I have to go and add a new post and I have to think about what it is, and then I just get the AI to help me a little bit. That progression will I think continue. So it's like the AI will be doing more and more and more of that for you. So that's certainly interesting.
Yeah.
Um, the kind of other opportunity I see is for really any derived content that you have. So that could be like, I've written a post and I need to fill in the post excerpt, for example. The post excerpt, for the most part, is just really a derived field from whatever your actual post content and whatever else may have been. And the same is true for quite a lot of fields around, like SEO meta fields. What's it going to say? And I'm going to tweet it. How's it going to look on Facebook? All of that kind of stuff that right now, you have to write a content, but then you've also got to do a good amount of derived content kind of writing as well. And that's really, again, these large language models are very good at doing that kind of thing. And it's fairly laborious, and ultimately, the unique thing has probably been done in terms of the creative thing has probably been done in the article already, or the page that you're creating. So derived data is fairly standard, I would say. The kind of next problem that I think that AI could improve significantly in WordPress is just classification as a concept. So that's like auto tagging, auto categorization, or whatever taxonomies that you may have. Again, large language models are very good at doing that. If you give it a post and you give it a list of your tags and you say, select me the most appropriate tags, or you don't even give it a list of tags and just say, create me 7 keywords from this, it's very good at doing that kind of that kind of analysis. On top of that, it can also do things like content clustering. So if, for example, you don't have an existing category tree or something like that, or you introduce let's say you introduce a new taxonomy for something, for a website that has like 100,000 articles already published, AI can be used to actually find your clusters within that domain and provide labels for them. So you don't even need to, it's not even a case of think about what your categorization structure is and then have those articles be in it. You can even lean on the AI to do the clustering as well. So I think, again, just more automation is really there for the taking, and that just means more productivity ultimately. And then image, video, and audio classification is also a fairly common one. Of what labels are in this image, or what is this image of, or what's the transcript of this audio, or that kind of thing. And there's also a good amount of plugin solutions that are available. I know that 10up has one, I think, called Classify for some time, that does image tagging, for example. So again, I think we should expect that, given that WordPress is the hub of the content, it really needs to be industry leading in terms of its ability to categorize and generate metadata and gain insights from the content, and all of that. And really, yeah, I'd say the state of the art WordPress is not there yet. So I think another area, and I'm not exactly sure how this would kind of be the future of WordPress, but I think there are solutions out there already trying to take on this problem. The idea of adding personalization to the user experience and having automated testing potentially as part of that as well. So this is leaning on a little bit of like Sitecore's take, and really the DXP space in terms of what that's trying to solve. Things like automatically creating off of your visitors. So something that marketers generally have to do right now is define who their audiences are. Now AI can be used to actually just analyze all of your traffic and kind of find out who your different cohorts of people are. And once you're able to do that and identify demographics automatically, and then you're able to create variations of your content specific to those demographics or cohorts. AI again can help you with that, right? It can help you with taking your homepage and making it more appropriate for a different demographic. And as well as that, AI can be involved in the measurements and selections of those tests over time. So as you have cohorts defined and different content for different audiences, also AI kind of running on writing, it can also make the decisions on what is performing well and what isn't performing well, and therefore handling all of those knobs and dials in terms of who gets what. So I think that is in some ways the kind of, I don't know, maybe like marketing utopia to some degree, is a website where it's virtually different for everybody and tweaked to everybody, personalized in really the true sense, and that kind of continually measured and tweaked as you go. But I think that there's some overlap there with online privacy and tracking and all of that. So it's be interesting to see exactly how that plays out. But clearly, there's a good amount of players in the space that are already going in that direction.
Yeah. Joe, just would like to interrupt this session for a minute.
Of course.
An announcement: our live viewers can get a chance to win $100 in hosting credit. All they have to do is answer this very simple question on CDN and WordPress. So answer this question and get a chance to win $100 in free hosting credits. Joe, you can continue now.
Cool. Okay, on to the next slide. Kind of zooming out a little bit and thinking, much more longer term in terms of how WordPress and AI may kind of come closer together and grow into the future. I think right now we're in this like experimentation phase where plugins are kind of implementing, point features, if you like, kind of, a button which you click to generate an image. It brings up a modal, you like generate image, and then there's a way to copy that back into WordPress. And that's kind of like a incremental step from, I use ChatGPT, the website, and now I'm going to kind of use a plugin to provide me that interface, basically, to do the same thing there. And I don't have to copy and paste anymore. I click a button instead of, copy into post or something like that. And I think we're somewhere between, a lot of experimentation going on of fairly bolt-on type functionality, I suppose, into like, I would say, more streamlined augmentation. So what I see there is really AI capabilities really quite deeply embedded into WordPress throughout. For example, image AI tools should integrate and exist seamlessly in what is the WordPress media library and the editing experience. And if you think back to the Adobe Firefly playthrough there, something like that should be just a directly available feature, I suppose, in terms of how cohesive the user experience is and all of that. And again, I think plugins with some help from WordPress core in terms of the correct hooks and APIs and all of that, I think can provide a pathway to a very well augmented CMS where there's still a good amount of third parties that are coming in via plugins and services to provide that. And that's really where Human Made is fairly focused right now in trying to create tools that are very seamless and very deeply integrated, I suppose, to
Okay.
try and understand what that feeling would be. And I think that can really give a significant productivity boost on what is a default out of the box WordPress. But I still think there's an extra step, and I've said kind of natural integration here. And I think if you consider things like voice assistants, like Siri, for example, and how you can control your home with Siri, or how I think we will expect platforms in at least 1 to 2 years to really be, they will have created their initial idea of whatever the product is in the age of AI, and that is going to have shaped quite significantly what a different experience it is. And that's certainly not a bolt-on experience, right? It's not like, well, the experience is fill out a form of 20 fields, but have a button you can click to fill in each of those fields. It's really starting from first principles. We know we have this capability of AI. What does it mean to have something like a polling system or something like that, right? So I think that there is a future for WordPress where it is much more AI first, I suppose. And my imagination there is basically just a blank screen with a thing that's just asking you what you want to do, rather than like a traditional, let's say, user experience with some AI capabilities pasted on top. And I think that's kind of important because the user expectations are going to be going along this line, and maybe we're somewhere in the augmentation level of user expectations now, where users may be searching for how can I automatically do X, Y, or Z with my WordPress site, and they bring in some plugins to do that. But I think that as technology over the next, it's even 1 to 2 years, but let's say 3 years, is going to be incorporating all of this AI advancement. I mean, you can see that just from Google's event 2 weeks ago, where they basically integrated AI across their whole product suite. That's mostly at the augmentation phase, right? It's still like your email as you knew it, but now you can have it write an email for you. But I think it's the next level of iteration beyond that, which is really going to be thinking about products ground up, incorporating AI. What is that actually going to create? And as that happens, the user expectation is going to be increasing. And really, WordPress right now is still really, for the most part, a kind of glorified database where you're inspecting fields, and it's a lot of clicking. It's a lot of having to type everything out in a very structured way. I think the block editor is actually a very good advancement from that, right? Where people are probably thinking less in terms of 100 custom meta boxes and more in kind of a direct manipulation kind of way. But the way that AI is now able to provide a different interface for people to interact with technology and with computers and with phones and with apps, then that's going to have to shift, I think, quite a lot more too. And I think, again, like apps coming out over the next year or two, and maybe, hopefully next month, Apple releases some AI APIs for app developers as well. I think like we're still doing a lot of catch up in terms of user experience when somebody can go and chat chat to chat GPT and have a very human interaction, human conversation. And it's not going to be long, if you look at chat GPT plugins and all of that, where you can now just say, please book me a flight because I'm traveling and I need to go via wherever, and make sure that it's, going to have a hotel next to it with X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is kind of at the level of just being able to do that for you. The
Yeah.
expectation from users is I can just now talk to computers and they do what I want, and that's it's not just a voice thing. It's like a semantics of understanding the thing that you're saying kind
Yeah.
of thing. So
I
yeah,
think
I think
right
that's going to
now,
have a
I think
profound
right now a
impact.
lot of it, yeah, I think right now a lot of it has to do with just understanding. We are at the stage where companies and brands and products are understanding what AI can actually do and what's the potential there. Because with chat gpt,
Exactly.
a lot of people had the idea. Maybe even those who weren't aware of what AI is, they have the idea that they can now interact, as you mentioned, with technology, and then that technology can talk back with you. It's a two-way communication now, instead of just
Exactly.
being one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going forward, I think WordPress at the moment is at that stage where I think it's starting to realize that it might need AI in the future. But you have mentioned it
Hmm.
correctly that it is sort of lagging behind, and given its open source nature, I think a lot of WordPress developers or plugin developers will be thinking about coming up with tools that they can integrate AI with. And as you mentioned, entering commands and websites building up themselves. I mean, in the future, as you mentioned as well, that we might just have to write a simple command. It can create a website from ground up. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
it may not be the final product, but it will be something to start off with, right? You won't have to start your code from scratch. It will just create a website, and then you can take it from there. So
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, it's a bright future ahead for AI and WordPress, and I think we can see some products or some plugins being announced in the future, in this year or maybe next year, where WordPress is integrating AI with it as well. On
Yep.
that note, I think I would like to thank you, Joe, for taking your time
Thank you
out
very
today
much.
for this session. And we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of WordPress, and obviously, it has been made even bigger with the presence of guests like yourself. So, once again, I thank you for that. And I thank you, our viewers, as well, for tuning in today for the three sessions that we have had. But this is just the beginning. I mean, we have 4 more days to go in this week of webinar where we are celebrating WordPress. So tune in tomorrow, where we will be hosting a session on women in WordPress. In fact, it is hosted by Michelle Fretchett herself. So it's going to be a very insightful session, Michelle hosting it. So you can imagine it's going to be a lot more fun as well. That is followed by a session on future of WordPress with Mario Peshev, another insightful session. So don't forget to tune in tomorrow for these insightful sessions and throughout the week. So for today, this is all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Joe. We're
Thank
gonna
you.
see you. We're gonna see you next week. Thank you.